Hello, everybody, and welcome back to the Grid Shift podcast. I'm your host, Alex Girante. Really quick on the name, think of a grid as any system that a business runs on, and the shift is what happens when a leader decides to rewire it. And that's what this show is all about, forward-thinking leaders across all different industries and how they actually think about business, about growth. We talk about what they're building, their journey, who they help, what they do. So very excited to have everybody back here today. Again, I'm your host, Alex Durante. Quick read from our sponsor. This episode is brought to you by Axis AI, built by operators, powered by AI. Here's the thing with most small businesses. The owner is the system. Nothing runs when the owner steps away. Your pipeline is usually referrals and hope. And we help owners actually find what's quietly costing them time and money. We build a brand that actually converts, and we put a real lead generation system in place that runs while you sleep. So we don't hand you a strategy deck and disappear. We build it and we run it. If that sounds like something you're interested in, stay till the end of the episode. Make sure you like and subscribe. But without further ado, our guest today is Dana Leduff Slaughter, a certified nutrition specialist, a certified health coach, functional medicine health coach. She's spent over a decade in this industry. She helped build another company alongside a medical doctor partner. Really did some incredible stuff, but now she's full in and full focused on her newest company, which is Vital Nest. Really excited to have you on, Dana. How are you doing today?
I'm doing wonderful. Thank you so much for having me, Alex.
Wonderful. So, in our prep call, one thing that you mentioned about Vital Nest, which is where I want to start, you hit me with a tagline of cultivate the conditions for life to flourish, right? And I remember at our pre-podcast chat, the image you built for me was a bird building a nest, right? And the
Yes.
bird not knowing exactly where each twig knows, but knowing that it strengthens the entire structure. And so that's really what stuck with me the most, was just like the way you described that and what you're doing at Vital Nest. I've
Mhm.
been looking forward to talking about that. But let's start with, you spent 13 years building another company with your business partner. And you told me you learned every mistake you could have possibly learned, right? About running a
Yes.
health practice. So I
Yes.
want to start there. I want to start there, right? Like, what did those 13 years teach you about traditional healthcare, and what's broken? Like, just tell me more. What did those 13 years really teach you?
Oh my gosh. Well, those 13 years were so amazing because I want you to imagine two young women embarking on a journey to be two salmon swimming upstream, we say, really forging a new path in healthcare because we were both trained as functional medicine or integrative practitioners at the time. I was a new integrative certified health coach, and she was a board certified medical doctor, both in family medicine and integrative or holistic medicine. And we both had training from the Institute of Functional Medicine, which is a higher certification, a little bit more specialized in like root cause medicine. But many practitioners that start there don't start with a cash pay or direct pay practice because at the time in 2014, it was almost like very unheard of to be brave enough to do that outside of the insurance model, and no one knew what integrative really meant. So I want you to embark upon a journey with me where we're having early conversations about what healthcare should look like, what healthcare felt like at the time. She's a brand new doctor who wants to really forge her path as a healer, and I was staffing hospitals around the country. So really, I was more on the administrative side of healthcare management and staffing hospitals around the country. So it was really a dream that we made our reality over the past 12 years until I was able to transition to Vital Nest full time. But I think in doing so, we learned how we had to shape educating the marketplace on what holistic medicine really looked like. And being able to do it alongside a physician was really remarkable. in the way that we really understood that there was a critical gap in the healthcare space where the physician was amazing at collecting the diagnostic information to explain what was happening with the patient and why it might have been happening to date, but really there was a huge gap after that, right? Like once you get all of these amazing comprehensive lab results, what do you do with the information? How do you really affect change and positively correct these unusual or abnormal biomarkers? And that's where my role as a health coach really shined. I remember the early days being like, oh my gosh, how am I gonna motivate this person? What am I gonna tell them? Like, how do I actually do this? But she was fortunate enough, my partner, to believe in my training and believe in my ability to sit with someone across the table, across the desk, and really say, you know how to help them. You've always helped them. From wherever you were in healthcare. And I think it was really beautiful because what I learned is that there was a critical gap between the clinical care and the diagnostic information in affecting positive lifestyle or behavior change to implement those treatment recommendations into their lives. And this is the most valuable role as a health coach to really understand how to translate that clinical knowledge into a practical and sustainable way of living, whether it's sleep, rest, gut improvements, immune system support, detoxification, cardiovascular risk factors. I mean, the sky's the limit, really, in what we saw.
Is there a certain moment when you just said something interesting to me, which is like you need a translator for the reports and the
Oh,
diagnostic, right?
100%.
Like what was there a moment that made you kind of realize that you're like, oh, I can help people understand actually what's going on and come up with a solution to actually change their behavior? Like how did you
Absolutely.
kind of recognize that?
Well, I think at Night Integrative originally, we were trying to figure out like, is it like a fee for service model in the sense that we charge per hour of the practitioner's time? Meaning, they got labs, they sat with the doctor, then what happens? And so we tried to play with that model when we first opened. This is between 2014 and probably 2016, where we recognized that people got better support and a better transition to work with a health coach, um, and really understood the value in that when I sat in on the visit with the doctor. And that's really where it was like the greatest epiphany, where the doctors are so good at explaining each lab test and what it actually says, like where you fall in the reference range. But by the end of that hour, Alex, the patient was like, the eyes are glazed over and it was like a deer in the headlights. They're overwhelmed with all of this information from this amazing diagnostician. But they really were like, well, now I feel even more overwhelmed because now I have more information than I had, but I don't really
Right.
know how to step forward and how to do anything with this treatment recommendation, So it's almost like you have to understand that people need hope, they need inspiration, and they need a partner to literally say, you've got this, and this is how we're going to do that one intentional step at a time. And that's where the metaphor with the nest kind of comes into play because when the bird's collecting the branch, it doesn't really know where the branch is going to be supporting that weakness or that vulnerability. But being able to understand that, man, I understand this science. I understand with a master's in nutrition and with all these years experience that, oh my gosh, like this is my role. I can act as the bridge between that clinical diagnostician and the person who needs to know, is it sunshine? Is it hydration? Is it sleep? Is it recovery? Like, what is it that I need to help improve my circumstance? And really, that's where I began to recognize that this is a role that no one knows what it is as a health coach. It was really fringe at the time, 12 years ago. I think now even we're just beginning to understand the power of having a health coach in the clinical environments or the clinical space, but it's not to replace or to interfere with the clinical provider's relationship. It's really to act as a partner and a plug where there's got to be someone who still understands the science and knows how to say, okay, I understand what your doctor's saying and what your labs are telling, but this is how I can guide you forward and how I can teach and educate you about what it means for you individually. And that's really, something that I discovered just learning with myself because I could hear and understand on a higher level than that patient feeling overwhelmed in the chair next to me during that visit. So it really was a remarkable shift in like, wow, we're offering something unique with a health coach and a doctor under the same roof
Right.
in
Right.
that
So, okay.
healthcare space.
So now tell me how did Vital Nest come to be? What was the vision behind that? Right. You have this experience that you just laid out and explained, like where you're like, okay, I'm seeing what the purpose is, like how I can help people. Um, get everyone up to speed on Vital Nest. How did that come to be? Now
Yes.
you're, fully doing Vital Nest on your own. You've moved on from Night Wellness and you have a lot of different things going on, but tell people like what is Vital Nest? How did it come to be?
Well, Vital Nest is a virtual coaching practice. It really specializes in that bridge, right? That translation from the clinical knowledge of what the patient's experiencing into therapeutic lifestyle or behavioral changes, albeit nutrition, sleep, movement, performance and recovery, maybe some hormonal or gut dysfunction. Really, like all of those years of clinical knowledge is coming down to I've seen the patterns in people and things, but I still know how to hone in actively listening on one person's concerns, and I know how to guide them forward. So I think Vital Nest kind of came from if I could help support one physician, it was really about social impact and really about stewardship for me. And when my current business partner under Night Wellness decided to dissolve the practice, I really had to think about my role in my community and the vocation that I was called to do from being a health coach. And I really had to weigh how I wanted to move forward with continuing these therapeutic relationships I built with these people for the past 10 plus years that have grown very accustomed to having that person to go to say, my doctor told me this, I discovered this lab test or this lab finding, and I'm just spiraling. Like, I don't even know what to say or what to do or how I can like take this in stride and continue to be empowered and hopeful about the future of my health, the future of my well-being. And I think that's what really created the inspiration for me to say, okay, if you can support a collaborative relationship with one physician, you can open yourself up to doing it with multiple physicians. And your role is the same. It's one and the same. So I was brave enough to do that. And once I recognized that I had a good enough client base to carry on forward and replace my full-time income, that's when everything really just started to change and fall into place, Alex. I think that it made me recognize that divine timing is a thing and that people were ready for this post-pandemic. They were ready to join forces with a therapeutic partner that was a collaborative partner to support the physician care and to support their health and wellness goals of achieving sustainable lifestyle results, like with less medication, well, if I have blood sugar dysfunction, why isn't my doctor telling me how to resolve it, how to lower my blood sugar, how to,
Right.
increase my fiber, how to move more, and what that's really going to do? Because 90% of the time, Alex, it's not about a lack of education. It's not about a lack of knowledge, I would say, rephrasing that just a bit. It's really of a lack of, wherewithal to say, how can I change my lifestyle so that it looks differently so I can create, again, that environment where I could cultivate the conditions where I can really like build a vital nest and really flourish. And I took that one step further when I erected Vital Nest because I was like, and my role as a steward is to teach others to do the same. Because it's more about that one-on-one contact, right? It's about if I can do it for one physician, why wouldn't I replicate this model and really get into the social change of healthcare reform because it's for all of our greater good. It's going to lower healthcare costs. It's going to increase success with actionable behavior changes to improve labs without being so dependent and reliant upon the pharmaceutical industry or the healthcare system. Because at the end of the day, if people are still having poor outcomes with modernized medical advancements, like, are we actually restoring health and well-being? Are we living better? Are we like extending our quality of life? And so all of those things made me realize, like, someone has to create this social grassroots movement to say, like, it's possible. And
Right.
let me show you that we can do it on a small scale, but hopefully be prepared to make it larger, because I believe it's the future of what we're going to need.
What do you think you guys do for people better than let's say, I mean, there's probably not a ton of competition because it's so niche and what you're doing is so unique, but in simple terms, like how do you really have an impact on someone and help them with the things that you're describing through all of this?
I think you have to meet people where they are. I think they really have to be ready to change, not just saying that they're ready to change, but really be most of the people that come to me, Alex, are frustrated, right?
What are they
They're
frustrated
tired.
with?
They're tired of having the same conversation, feeling like the physician isn't digging deeper with them when
Mm,
their symptoms and what they're reporting to their clinical partners aren't being like heard or aren't being affected or influenced. They feel like they see their doctor once a year and they feel like that's one conversation. And they feel like the next year they go and they feel a little bit worse and a little bit worse. And that creates this perpetual cycle of feeling unheard and not acknowledged and very like unvalidated. And I think that people post pandemic have shifted the need of wanting more individualized or personalized support with someone who has the time to actively listen about all the things, right? Like, what's going on in their relationships? What's going on with like the job that they love or hate? What's going on with like the time that they're committing to certain things and the time that they feel like time is passing where their health is degrading? So I think that fear of health, the vulnerability of losing your health and well-being, I think that creates a call for action. And I think that that's where having a health coach and having a behavior change person to sit down with you and say, like, let's really talk about what's working and what's not working for you and map that next to what the doctor and the lab results have shown you and what they're telling you you need to do so that you can find some happy medium, because it's not enough to just have the doctor tell you anymore, because the person's like, but what if I can't? Well, what if I don't want to? Well, what if I'm worried about adverse reactions for those medications? There's a lot of fear around what happened post pandemic that I think shook a lot of people. And I think it's the first time in the market where people are understanding, yes, I still need a clinical diagnostician for keeping me safe and making sure I'm not being foolish from a conventional medical model or holistic. I don't need any medication. We don't want to be in any extreme. We just want to be smart and diligent to know that the clinician's role is not to sit with you and spend that amount of time customizing your lifestyle. And that's where I think there's much more success now in the marketplace, because people now understand that I need a clinician, but I also need this other healthcare advocate, this other therapeutic role where, hey, this person's going to really help me understand what I need to understand in order to stay motivated to make actionable changes in my life, that are sustainable to create a better way of living for me.
And how do you decide when you're going through that process, that journey with a client, right? How do you decide what's there could be a laundry list of things that need to be worked on, right? How do you really decide the one or two things that are going to actually start moving the needle?
Yeah, I think that sleep is a huge one. I think that, when someone's not recovering well and when not waking up rested, it doesn't matter how much you're putting into the engine if you're not able to recover and restore function and repair. So I think sleep is a big one. I think that in this hustle life and work culture that we live in, people
Hmm.
don't even make the time to rest well and unplug and get back into real light versus artificial light exposure. And so I think those two things are kind of like two huge priorities because they give you so much as far as energy production and healing. And this is not like woo science anymore, right? Someone won a Nobel Prize for this light science where they understood that, we have a nerve in the back of our eye that when we don't get real sunshine exposure, that your body can't know where it is in day and night and in space and time. And when we start to get disconnected from the world that we're walking in, it doesn't matter how much you're moving or how well you're eating or how clean you're eating or how much you're hydrating. Those two things still go back down to the highest priority of resting and recovering well and understanding where you are grounded in this world. So I think that's always a high priority. But then, of course, you have to get out of your own way, right? We have to create a more sustainable lifestyle where we're eating well and we understand, what real food looks like, because that's a whole nother conversation. And we're living in a world where it's hard to avoid the ubiquitous toxins that are present, right? I mean, people don't even realize how toxic our world has become and the choices that we're making for convenience versus, you know, nutrient density that's life-giving choices that we're making. So I think that you have to kind of help them prioritize where their greatest offenders are and start there.
Why do you think people miss the mark when it comes to lifestyle changes like you're describing, right? I mean,
Mhm.
even something as simple as getting more sleep. Why do you think people miss the mark?
I think it's like I said, I don't think it's a lack of knowledge. I think it's an improper expectation set on the amount that people actually need to live well in today's overstimulated world, right? There's a lot of people that are like, "Oh, I don't need 7 hours of sleep. Like I've never gotten 7 hours of sleep." But you look at them and they're aging rapidly, They have gray hair before 30 and, they have hormonal dysfunction because they're not able to make adequate hormones to live well. I mean, like this is male and female now that we're exposing low testosterone and fertility challenges because we're just not um unstressed. Like we're overstressed and we're depleted. And when you do that, your stress axis says, hey, wait a minute. I'm in survival mode and I'm not trying to rest and digest and reproduce in a healthy and happy environment. And that is why you see all these trends in healthcare. So I think that I don't know if that really answered the question that you asked, but I think that people are just becoming disconnected and they don't have the proper expectations about it's going to take longer to make actual change in your life. But I think that when we've been conditioned in a way for the quick fix, for the band-aid, for this pill or that, it's just a matter of if you're really willing and if you're ready to take action and if you're sick of feeling sick and tired and you want to change, that's the person that Vital Nest is really going to be able to help because it's that divine timing I was telling you about. It's where you're actually meeting them where they are and they're like, no, I want to explore an alternative path because I've tried all of that. I've tried all the quick fixes and those things and I'm still feeling the way that I'm feeling at the end of the day. And so it's where you marry I don't want to feel this way anymore. And I have to make a change because I can't keep going forward like this. And I think that's where
Yeah.
we're motivated the highest degree to like make a real change in your life. And that's when it's like, hey, I'm ready. Like the door is open. Let's sit across the
Yeah.
kitchen table together. Let's figure this out. Because this is what your narrative is telling you. This is what this is what the labs are saying to you is the most urgent things to prioritize.
Yeah, and I think no one really changes without enough suffering, right? The reality is like when you finally do make a change, it's because whatever suffering you're going through isn't worth it compared to what that change is worth. And so,
Right. It gets
yeah,
too loud to the point where you have to embrace a change, right? I mean, that's just Maslow's hierarchy of change.
yeah, yeah. So, so you told me we were talking a little bit about AI and systems and scaling and what you're looking to do, and you told me you are using AI a little bit, not just ChatGPT, but you use it for some other stuff. You're building some operational systems, keeping things organized, doing different things. We also talked about like how as you scale, like AI is kind of helping you with the vision and different things like that. Um, what was kind of the moment where you realized like, oh, okay, this AI thing, like I guess it went from, hey, this is nice to have to, oh wow, like I can really, really use this to compress time and do things more efficiently.
Well, I think that some of us may, and I definitely made this mistake early on when it was more like exploratory thoughts, right? It was just like me soundboarding with this thing to say, like, so what is this really helping me extend my thinking in a way? But when you know what you're trying to achieve and then you start prompting it appropriately, it almost helps you refine your vision so acutely that it then can help you scale because then it's like an infrastructure conversation. Then it's like, how can I do this at a fraction of the time and effort and intensity while achieving the really basic, honed in, critical aspects of the information that I actually need to collect from my customers and my clients and my patients. And so I think that's where it really was like, wow, all of that 12 years in healthcare and being like, you don't need 60 pages of intake information because through
Yeah.
those conversations, you're going to find out, again, like you said, how do you know where to prioritize? Like you're going to know exactly one or two things to start with. And if they have an appropriate expectation set on it's going to require more than one conversation to actually build this new, better lifestyle for you that's sustainable. That's where AI and the infrastructure and me building a language for how to convey some of these complex medical um, conditions in an illustrated form that shows them this is where sleep is depleting you. This is where all of these inputs in your life, and it gives them a visual language. AI has certainly helped me build this at a rapid fire speed
Yeah.
because there's no shortage of ideas. I think that sometimes people are using AI to give them ideas, but when you have actual lived experience and you can leverage a tool that can help you take that and actually produce, this is what every operator, every founder, every entrepreneur needs at their fingertips because I know what people have shown me that they need. It's just a matter of getting them to see it, hear it, and take action to achieve it. So, even in how I communicate, right? If I have a one session with someone and I can help create a systematic way to keep them motivated in between sessions and recapture my notes in a way that helps them understand and feel heard and validated and seen and really connected to why they're making the changes that they are. It's like the consistency and the cumulative intentional act of that connection is just carrying me forward so much faster than the direct fee for service or that same 1 hour of time that was 10 years ago. And so AI has really helped me leverage to build cleaner, better infrastructure, but it's allowed me to do it at scale with a very low cost at a very high rate of speed. And it's really set me up to scale appropriately for Vital Nest. And I'm excited about that because I never thought that that was possible, a year
Yep.
ago when we started kind of thinking about, oh man, this is really something that I think people are ready for. I think this is something that people need. I think um, it's really like filling a critical gap between the healthcare practitioner and, you know, the patient suffering.
Well, let's talk about that a little bit. You currently see between like 15 to 20 clients a week. We had talked about, as you scale, like you want to be able to double that without necessarily adding a ton of hours, right? And
Yeah.
so what does that actually look like operationally? Like what has to change as you grow to be able to I guess really double the business, but without having to double your bandwidth and your, input of hours.
Well, I think it's a shared responsibility, right? You know, I'm not changing the person, I'm just inspiring them too. So I think that when you give someone the tools and the path forward to actually like affect the change and they understand why they're making those changes, you know, they don't need me as frequently as they would because they have their marching orders in between. They know why they're doing what they're doing in between. So that allows me to continue on building and growing and creating that learning library for them to better support them when I do sit down with them. But, you know, again, the pandemic has created such an opportunity for group sessions, for collaborative partners, for, you know, extending your time in a way where that same 1 hour I could reach 8 people or 80 people while I rest, and they can do it in a drip style fashion because I've already built a custom program for them that is going to really hone in on making them the hastiest results. So that means my time isn't so much in depth for like a 1 hour long conversation. I can do what I need to do to support them because they're actually taking in stride the work. So the higher level of skill that they need from me as their behavior coach or health coach is just really to say, okay, here's where I got caught. Here's where I got a hiccup. Here's where I had questions about this that came up in between our bi-weekly or bi-monthly sessions together. And that's really, it's going to allow me to scale in a much greater capacity because these things are now systematized. Like automation is awesome. I think that when you can give personalized automation that keeps pushing the envelope because you've programmed it that way, um, it's still coming from you, right? Because you've built that language, you've built that, you know, workforce, if you will, in an AI form, but it extends my coverage without me really needing to rely on human resources. And that's really cool. But I think that in order to grow, if I double my patient base, I will want other human resources too, because again, AI doesn't replace the human connection and the interaction that I feel like people are yearning for. I think that in my local community here, they still want FaceTime with me. They still want the community event. They still want the dinner, and breaking bread together. And I think that's where connectivity really matters and community health and well-being matters. But I think that again, leveraging it to scale, using technology, using AI in a responsible and productive way is really allowing this method to really take flight and to grow because I think there's a lot of practitioners beyond the few collaborative physician relationships I have now that are like, my patients need this. Like I can only help them get to a point, but they need someone to take it further with them. They need to push it forward. And that's what Vital Nest can really do. It can really take that information and work as an additional partner at an extension to say, let's do this. And the people are taking it that much farther, you know.
Mm-hmm. So let's talk a little bit more about as you are growing, right? Vinyl Nest in, let's say, I don't know, 1 year, 3 years, right? I know you and we talked about having additional coaches, having
Yeah.
community groups, even having someone like repping you guys at a local farmers market and, to get the brand out there. Doing home type things where you're doing home visits and teaching people about
100%. You've got to
right.
have a teaching kitchen. Some people just don't know how to cook anymore, Alex. They don't know how to source healthy foods. They don't know what healthy food looks like. They don't know what nutrient dense foods are. You know, some people still are under belief that packaged foods or the foods from the restaurant are going to have your best health at, in mind. And unfortunately, they're not recognizing that they're not keeping your health in your mind. They're trying to get the lowest quality at the highest price that they could pay you to not do it for yourself. And that's not
Mhm.
really matching with, living well and being healthy,
Right.
and I
Now
practice in
you
Louisiana, so it's a very different culture of what that means and looks like as compared to like California or some more health conscious environments. So,
right, right. And I know you mentioned you do corporate wellness talks and it's part of what you do. How how big of a piece of the business do you want the corporate wellness talks to be? Like, is that something that you're looking to do a lot more of, or tell me more about that?
well, I think when it comes to corporate health or executive wellness, it's really more of like understanding the employer incentive for covering healthcare benefits or healthcare insurance premiums. And I think that we're living in a world where people want insurance premiums paid for by their employer still. But unfortunately, sometimes those corporate wellness visits are more of like, against the grain of people really wanting to change, and they're like, listen, I'm getting a perk from my employer to be here. I don't really want to be here. So I think it's less of an ideal fit, but knowing that some workforces are culturally appropriate with like wanting to create a positive work culture and a positive environment and truly care about their people, those people would be like a better fit for Vitalness going forward in a corporate wellness space, because I certainly want to, again, enhance social impact because I believe that this is the future. And I think that when we choose work that we love, when we choose work that we're passionate about, and you are building that positive vibe in the workplace when they're spending so much time helping you achieve your goals, but they can grow too. It's all about elevating the entire whole. So I think that's where it would be appropriate, but it would have to be like less of incentive based model, but more of like I really care about my people and I really want to see them thrive. But of course, if that lessens costs on healthcare premiums and if that is achieving the goal of actually like creating healthier, happier people that can thrive and build their dreams, I think that it's the greater good, and like sign them up. Like I will build it for them and I will do it in a way where they really are feeling like, man, I could get that Aura ring. I could get that wearable or trackable to further enhance my personal happiness and lifestyle and really make them feel empowered. Because at the end of the day, it's about them feeling empowered and encouraged and hopeful about the future and the lives that they're building.
Well, let's talk about purpose and legacy a little bit, right? You said you think that in the future, um, if every medical office had a health coach, you think that really is what the future of healthcare looks like. Let's say that becomes true, right? How do you think that changes how people actually get better, right?
Yeah.
Having a health coach.
I think that it would prevent physician burnout, which is a real issue in today's world. I think with higher living costs and higher inflation that we can't keep up with, I think that when it comes to the healthcare climate, you can't work in those conditions. And I think that, again, these are extenders, right? Health coaches are extending the medical knowledge and making it more sustainable. And many of my recommendations aren't, um, you know, impacting the medical management, that the physicians are writing the prescriptions and monitoring them. I'm not suggesting supplements necessarily and changing them. I'm just aware of those interactions from a food-based perspective because they do impact them. But I think in the future, if you have that person that understands the clinical knowledge but can help support the people, everyone's going to thrive because healthcare is getting too expensive for what it's not restoring in our health and quality of life. And that's where I'm really concerned about our aging population. I have two parents that are in their 70s and they've had some medical challenges. And I certainly have some younger family members in their 40s that are having unheard of health challenges that we should never experience at that young of an age. And I think about, why is this the case? These are people with health insurance premiums. These are people who are, master's level educated. So there's not any limited or lacking resources. So why are we still not well and living well and happy and thriving? And that is where I think that this is really going to be just more cost effective and more life giving. And that's why I think it's going to be, something that is going to be a contender. Because when you start talking in big policy, C-suites at hospitals, I worked as a vice president staffing emergency medicine physicians before we opened Night Wellness 12 years ago. That's kind of what I did. And once you get into the right administrators' offices and you make them think differently, and they want to be on the forefront of changing that. They want to impact that bottom line dollar of how much it's costing for them to deliver the care. And I think understanding that and knowing, again, how to put a very lesser cost employee with a higher degree of skill, with heart that actually cares about people, that wants to see them be successful and thrive, I think that's where it becomes impact and stewardship, which is the basic premise of what Vital Nest is really representing, because we've lost that art. We've lost the ability to have our heart in this is someone's mother, father, sister, brother, child in the healthcare space, not just this 15-minute session where I'm like, let me get to the answer from a diagnostic perspective because yeah, I care about them, but like I don't have time for this. I've got the monkey on my back to say you need to see more people because there's a bottleneck. There's too many people that need the physician level attention and care because it's like we're reversed. Like we need to be thinking about how to restore function, how to prevent some of these like more invasive, expensive, advanced medical treatments instead of going for that label first to get that diagnosis, to get access to that level of care. Like this is our human birthright to live well and to be happy and to be rested and to feel inspired enough. One of the things we talked about in our last conversation was to dream that things are possible anymore, you know? So coming full circle, generationally speaking, think about these kids who are graduating high school. Like they're going to live a very different life than like we may have done. I was able to have a good enough job after college and like buy my first house at 23 and like the world looks different to them. Um,
Sure does.
financially and otherwise, and even the opportunities are different. So I feel like it's deeper than that, and I think it starts with a major sector like healthcare to really create and affect a change to say like, well, why aren't we doing that differently? Well, why aren't we in a wealthy economy like the United States thinking about why we're not focused more about preventative and proactive attention to the conversation of care for our
Right.
aging population? Because it's going to be 40 plus, and those 40-year-olds, like I said, are not necessarily healthier than the 70-year-olds that we're seeing in clinical environments today, and that's concerning to me.
No, yeah, what you're saying is true. Now, before we wrap up, where's the best place for people to be able to come connect with you, your website, things like that? Like tell people where can they find Vital Nest, best place to connect with you, social media, things like that. And then I want to get into our last question, which is a tradition
Absolutely.
on the podcast. But yeah, how can people connect with you, Dana?
I think the best way to connect with me is going to the website. It's www.myvitalnest.life. You're going to have access to a lot of resources there. You can book directly a free consultation just to make sure that I can help you and that you are ready to change. I think that when it comes to physician collaboration or additional contact with me, there is a contact page on the website that they can access and kind of check that box for what you're most interested in connecting with me about. There's also always a phone number. When I'm in session, I will not be able to answer, but I will return every phone call. Your time and attention is important to me, but I want to focus on my clients too when I'm in clinical sessions. but they can reach me at 985-205-8521. That is also published. I also do have professional and affiliate associations with the Functional Medicine Coaching Academy, who's accredited through the Institute of Functional Medicine. So they can look me up at functionalmedicine.org or the Functional Medicine Coaching Academy directory for how they can connect with me there. And I certainly have a new budding Instagram page. It's at myvitalnest.life and a YouTube channel where they can see me in the kitchen that is going to gain some traction too, hopefully after this. And that is called at Vital Nest Kitchen on YouTube. So
Fantastic. Well, thanks for sharing all that. We'll make sure that we put everything in the description. We'll put your bio through LinkedIn as well, the website. But yeah, everybody make sure you like, subscribe, connect, follow the YouTube channels, check everything out that Dana's doing. Very good to have you on. Before we finish up, there's a tradition on the podcast called the Magic Wand question. Okay. And so you mentioned your goal right now is to really double your client base while having a system to support it and not losing that personal touch, what's made Vital Nest what it is. So let me ask you this. If you had a magic wand to wave over any problem in Vital Nest right now, something that's slowing you down, holding you back, what would that problem be?
I think it's just getting the word out there that, health coaches can serve a vital role as a health advocate in your life to further enhance your relationships with your current clinical team members. I am not to replace or to interfere, but to enhance those relationships so that they're better equipped and better empowered to change their health for the better. And so if I could wave a magic wand, it would just be people to understand the role that these certified health coaches that have a lot of experience and training can do to help enhance your quality of life and care today.
Dana, this conversation, very thoughtful. I think the way that you talked about things was personal. It was relatable. I know it made it easy for me to understand more of what you do and how you actually help people. Really appreciate you coming on. Anything else to close us out? Feel free. Otherwise, we'll wrap it up here. But really appreciate the conversation today.
Oh no, I just am overwhelmed and blessed with the opportunity. Thank you so much for having me. I hope that, whoever hears this really finds the inspiration and motivation that they need to take action to reach out. It's only 15 minutes of time that we need to really see how we can help grow and help one another and make this world a better place.
Love it. Well, thank you for coming on, Dana. To everyone listening, I'm your host, Alex Girante. This is the Grid Shift Podcast, and we'll see you all on the next episode. All right. Bye,
Thank you.
everybody.
Bye.